Shading is the most important aspect of creating a realistic drawing, and I sucked at it. Yes, I created bad drawings time after time after time because I did not learn the proper shading techniques. I thought that I needed a $2,000 art material to create realistic drawing. So in this video, we are going to cover step by step the technique you need to shade a face without needing expensive art materials. Coming up. You'll be using these materials to shade today: a HB pencil, a 4B pencil, charcoal pencil, a piece of tissue paper, a brush, and charcoal powder. These pencils and these materials doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. You can make do with cheap materials. And I'm going to divide this technique into simple steps. I'll divide it into 6 steps. So if you want to take notes, now is the best time for you to grab a pen and a paper. Step 1. Create the base layer. So this base layer will be light. We don't want to go darker at this early stage, and I'll be using my HB pencil for this. Try holding the pencil at the end so that you'll be able to create soft shading. If you hold your pencil closer to the tip of the pencil near the lead of the pencil, your shading will be darker. And like I said, we don't want dark shadings at the beginning of the drawing. When you are shading, also try to create circular motions, like you are creating tiny circles that overlap each other. Step 2. Blend that with your tissue paper. Simply fold your tissue paper and blend it in circular motions to smoothen out the base layer. Step 3. Create the second layer with your 4B pencil. I'm making sure that I'm looking at my reference photo while I'm drawing, and trust me, it doesn't matter how many times you glance at the reference photo. What you need is to make sure that you are getting your drawings right. Don't feel ashamed that you have to take a look at the reference photo so many times to be able to draw realistically. This is how pros do. They look at the reference photo millions of times. Then also make sure that you are mapping out the shadows and you are shading the shadows. The shadows is what I actually target the most, because once I nail the shadows, I'm able to shade the midtones and the highlights. Again, remember that you want to shade in circular motions. There are so many ways of shading. You can shade in circular motions, you can do cross-hatching, you can do hatching, you can do pointillism, but I find that circular motions allows me to get a smoother skin easily. Step 4. Blend the shading you created with your HB pencil. And again, I'll be blending this with my tissue paper. Step 5. Sculpt your shadows. Find the dark areas in your reference photo and use your 4B pencil to shade those dark areas. But the fact that you want to go darker in this step doesn't mean that you have to press on the paper and apply pressure. Don't apply pressure, but still try to make sure that this is darker than the previous step. And I'm also trying to use my charcoal pencil to darken the nostrils. Step 6, the final step, create darker shadows with your brush. And of course, we'll not be using an ordinary brush for this. We are dipping our brush into charcoal powder and we are using that to shade. Find the shadows in your drawing and target those areas with your brush. And as I blend with my brush, I am not only focusing on the shadows, I am also extending my brush toward the midtones and using my brush to smoothen the midtones also. So these are the main steps that you need to take to create a realistic drawing. Or at least this is the step I take. And sometimes I can skip a step as I see fit because I actually want to get a particular area in a drawing. If I feel that a step is not necessary, I'll skip it. Let's take this jaw and cheek for example. I follow step 1. I create the base layer. I block out the shadows with my HB pencil and I am shading using hatching in this very large area. I used circular motions in the previous section, but this time I'm using hatching because it allows me to cover ground much faster. Step 2. I blend the base layer with my tissue paper. And oh my, look at how smooth that turned out. And the craziest thing is that we are creating this with really cheap materials. This HB pencil is the kind of pencil that little kids in kindergarten use, but we are using it to create realistic drawing. Go to the comments and let me know, guys, do you use expensive art materials to draw, or do you make do with cheap art materials or the ones that are available with you? I would really like to know, and I would like us to discuss this more in the comments. Step 3. Create the second layer with your HB pencil. I'm following the rules and I am still mapping out the shadows with my 4B pencil. Step 4. Blend the second layer with your tissue. Step 5. Sculpt the shadows with your 4B pencil. Now, I skipped this section and instead I went straight to Step 6. Create darker shadows with your brush. So you don't have to follow the set rules. Instead, tweak it to fit your preference. And what is it they always say? Rules are meant to be broken. So this is why I skipped Step 5 and I just went straight to Step 6 because the jaw is very dark. So thus creating dark shadows immediately is what is needed for this area. So I am focusing mainly on darkening it with my brush dipped in powder. It's getting hard saying my brush dipped in charcoal powder. So from now on, I will call this step my charcoal brush. It's a lot faster that way. So when you hear charcoal brush, just know that I am dipping my brush into charcoal powder. And yes, you can also dip your brush into graphite powder. But the reason why I use charcoal is because charcoal allows me to get dark tones. And this guy, Trevor Noah, is dark skinned. And hey, if you are enjoying the video so far, consider hitting the subscribe button because on this channel, we share easy tutorials like this to help you improve with your drawings. But now listen to this carefully. When it comes to large areas, rather than use my charcoal brush to blend, what I use is a piece of foam I cut out of a mattress. Simply dip this foam or sponge, as you may know it, into the powder and blend with it. When you blend with this foam, you'll be able to cover ground much faster as opposed to blending with a brush. Blending with a brush is best for little areas. So I continue tweaking and darkening as is needed. And if I see that an area needs to be darkened, I simply use my charcoal brush to make it darker. And yes, remember to dust away the excess charcoal from your brush if you want to blend light areas. If you don't get rid of the excess charcoal on your brush, you could end up with something like this. Now that we are done with the skin, it's time to draw the hair. And as you can see, this hair is different. It's not like the normal long wavy hair. This one is short, curly, and kind of tricky to draw. Do this. Click the video on the screen now to find out the easy way I drew this hair. Watch that and I'll see you there.